everything that happens to you is there for a reason, and you can either learn from it or you don't.
Hi, I'm Michael Hyatt.
And I'm Megan Hyatt Miller.
And you're listening to The Double Win Show. So today we're talking with Dr. Gladys McGarey, who was born when Woodrow Wilson was president. For some scale on that, Joe Biden is the 46th president of the U.S. Wilson was number 28.
Wow.
So that's how far it goes back. But Dr. Gladys is a pioneering holistic physician, a medical activist, and she's now 103 years old, and she still has an active medical practice. She's the founder and the past president of the American Holistic Medical Association, now called the Academy of Integrative Health and Medicine. She's a founding diplomat of the American Board of Holistic Medicine, and a lot of other credentials as well. But
when you've been alive for 103 years, you've done a lot of things.
Absolutely. She's the author of The Well-Lived Life, subtitled 102-Year-Old Doctor's 6 Secrets to Health and Happiness at Every Age. And my wife, Gail, introduced me to this book.
Well, she did. And I think the only person more excited than the two of us about Dr. Gladys being on today is Mom, actually. She's so excited, in fact, that we were talking about it. And I said, you know what? I need to step out of this podcast and let Mom be the co-host with you, because I think that this book has been so meaningful to her, and Dr. Gladys's work has been so meaningful to her that she's the perfect person to sit in this chair for this episode. So I'll be stepping out, she'll be stepping in, and then I'll be back with you again next week.
Enjoy. Gail, welcome. You have not done a podcast episode with us, at least in this new format.
Yep.
And so I want you to talk about the story before we introduce Dr. Gladys. I want you to talk about how you found this book and what it's meant to you.
Yep, I'd love to do that. So I was we have a lake house that's about an hour and 45 minutes from us. And so we try to spend as much time as we can down there. And when we're down there, we do a lot of walking. And when I walk, I typically listen to a podcast or a book or something. And so believe it or not, Gladys, it was 1 year ago to this very day, July the 18th, 2023, I listened to your interview with Ed Milet. And I was completely captivated by the interview and your whole story and just you as a human being. Everything resonated with me. And so I kept walking and walking. It was a pretty long interview and I just kept walking. And then as soon as I was done, I searched to find other interviews that you had done. And then I said, well, I got to get the book. So then I downloaded the book on Audible and started listening to it. And once I really got into the book, I was, your best evangelist. I was trying to encourage everybody, regardless of what age they were, to read what you had learned through life and your philosophy toward living. And it's just absolutely beautiful. And I particularly love the whole holistic approach to wellness and to health and the body, the mind, the spirit, every part of it. And it just really meshes with the philosophy of our business and what we are trying to put out to the world as well. So I just want to thank you for just choosing to write the book and to do the interviews and to make your wisdom accessible to people.
Well, thank you for taking it to the next step, because life and living and love have to grow, and they only grow by being shared. And so that's what you're doing, and I'm so grateful for that. And then giving me the opportunity to do it now is wonderful.
Oh, well, your message really resonates with us because as a company, we serve a lot of business owners and leaders who think that work is 100% of everything. And a lot of them don't have meaningful life outside of work. And we're committed to helping people get what we call the double win, which is to win at work and succeed at life.
Yeah.
So it's not either or, it's both and. And we feel like you're such the perfect embodiment of the message that we're trying to communicate to the world. So I wonder if you could start with just your personal story growing up in India and all the things that you learned along the way.
Oh, I can't do all the things I learned along.
103 years in 5 minutes.
But I'll try. I'll put a
Okay.
little niche in it.
Just for
Well,
some
it
context.
was wonderful to have the parents that I had. They were both osteopathic physicians at a time when women were not doctors, you know. In fact, when my mother came out to India with my dad, she came as his luggage. I mean, she didn't have a passport.
Wow.
So it was because women, you know, it's the way it was. They came to India and they just took on their work with the Indian villagers particularly. As a child, I responded to that so uh, at a gut level, you know, it was like, yeah, these are the people that we need. These are the ones that are, and so on. So I would play with the little Indian kids, and they would try to rub my arm and get the white off. You know, they wanted me the same color as they were. And I think that's a wonderful statement for us to hear from other people around the world. You know that we're one race. I mean, we're just one group of people. We're humans,
That's
and
right.
and we're all the same. So we have different things, but it's that hum actual deep humanity that we're reaching for when we're reaching for understanding each other.
One of the things that you talk a lot about, and I'm sure your parents exemplified this, and you certainly have, but you talk about the role of purpose in both health, physical and mental and emotional, but also in longevity. So could you just give us a few thoughts on purpose?
Absolutely. You know, it's really nice to get up and wake up and know that you have something to work for. You know, it's not just, oh, I got to go to work. I working for this, you know, and it's something that reaches to my inner space, and then it can reach to yours and to the next and to the next. It's the way life works. Life and love have to move, and they have to reach out to other people as well as deeper within ourselves. And the interesting thing is, as we learn to accept and respond to our own inner knowing, we actually can learn to love that part of ourselves. When I was a kid, I was so dyslexic that I was a class dummy and had to repeat first grade twice, and I really thought I was stupid. Fortunately, at home it wasn't that way. I had an ayah who I would be the class dummy, but I would climb up the mountain where we were. Our house was up on the higher in the mountain, and our ayah would be waiting at the end of the path for me, and she'd hold her chadar, her shawl out, and she'd say to me, Idarao, come here. And I'd go and she'd wrap that around me, and I'd sit down and wait until my world came back into focus. Or because at home things were great. School, it was another story.
That's fascinating. And then you went on though and continued your education to the extent that you became a doctor,
Oh, yeah.
and you're involved with helping educate other people and consult with people. So somehow you overcame all of that because of the
Well,
community that you were a part of.
you know, and interestingly enough, when I was in medical school, the dean didn't think that I understood what medicine was supposed to be about. So she sent me to the psychiatrist 3 different times because she thought I should leave. And the psychiatrist would send me back and say, no, I was okay, okay material for medicine. Fortunately, I had a nice psychiatrist.
So, Dr. Gladys, you were talking about how you struggled in school.
Yeah.
And yet, at the same time, you continued your education. You went all the way to medical school, graduated, you have a medical practice, you consult, you teach, you speak. And so, was that hard? Like, tell me the journey of that, because that purpose for your medical degree must have just kept propelling you forward.
Well, the way medicine is thought about in the overall scheme is it's there to kill diseases and get rid of them. And I don't think of it that way. I think of it as that these diseases are here for us to learn something from. And so because I had that attitude while I was in medical school, the dean sent me to the psychiatrist 3 times because he thought I didn't belong, and the psychiatrist thought it was okay. So I came back. But even after I've been in practice for many years, I was reported to the board, the Maricopa County Medical Board, and called up in front of them. And this one time, I had gone to the meeting and I'd accepted my reprimand, and I had the piece of paper in my hand about how I was supposed to start, doing things. Anyway, as I walked out of the door, one of the doctors from the room came out behind me, and he walked up to me and he taps me on the shoulder and he says, "Now let me tell you something, honey." Oh, that word honey just pushed a button in me. I turned around, I had my keys in my hand, and I started punching him on his shoulder, and I said, "You will not call me honey. I'm your peer age-wise and professionally, and you will not call me honey." So he kind of backed off, and I looked over, and my lawyer was leaning against the wall laughing. I came back to my office where my daughter, who was my partner at the time, we worked together. I told her what happened. She said, "Oh, Mom, you didn't." The whole thing. In my life, there is a limit to which I'm going to be pushed. And because if it's going to affect the message that I'm here to give, I'm not going to let that happen. And so it's that kind of a acceptance of how people think and how they want to do things and so on. But to have them tell me that I shouldn't be doing something pushes the wrong button. And because I know what I'm here for and what I've been working towards, and and people around the world are beginning to know it too. And it's
absolutely
awesome.
It really is awesome.
To me, you are a pioneer in so many ways. So as I have learned your story and read your books and listened to you speak and on podcasts, not only were you a pioneer for women in the medical community, and your mom was too, as you tell her story. And so that was, when I think of the magnificent female doctors that I've known over the years, it's just, you paved the way for them. And that was just such a gift. But not only were you a pioneer in the medical field, but you were a pioneer for women, but you were a pioneer in the medical field itself by introducing this holistic approach to healing. And I would love to hear you talk about that a little bit more, because one of the things that we try to teach in our business and to our clients and podcast listeners and people who we work with is that you have to see yourself as a whole person. And the challenge for our clients a lot of times is their primary focus is just on, I'm a business person. I run a business. I hire and, produce this or that. But they're also a human being. They're also probably a parent or a spouse or a brother or a sister or whatever. And so they have to see themselves in a holistic way. And you help pave the way for that view and way of seeing life. And I'd love to hear, how did that even come about? Because you were going against the grain.
Well, I'm calling it living medicine now, because
Okay,
that word puts it in perspective, because life has to live, and love is a way to make it live and reach it. And life and love. See, I have these 5 in my mind. I have these 5 L's that help me structure what I'm working towards and what I'm working with. The first 2 are life and love. They have to go together. It's like when you're pregnant. When I'm pregnant, the baby and I are one. What I eat, the baby eats. What I think, the baby thinks. Up until that baby takes its first breath, and then it becomes its own being. It accepts its place in the earth. Until that time, it was my joy and my responsibility to have that unit as one complete unit. But when that baby took its first breath, that baby became its own person. And when I was working with helping mothers have babies, I swear, when that baby took its first breath, I heard the angels sing. It was like this, and
wow.
so for me, it was such a blessing to have that energy coming in with this new being on the planet, on its own breath, on its own person.
One question I have about purpose: would you say you've always had the same life purpose, or that's changed in the various seasons of your life? Is your purpose today different than it was, say, 50 years ago?
Oh, it has to grow, or it dies. So it's not exactly the same by any means. When I was a kid, I knew I was a doctor. My sister wouldn't let me play with her dolls because my dolls got sick and hers didn't. And so anyway, it was, and I told my parents when I was quite young that I was a doctor, and it wasn't I was going to be one. It was that's who I am.
One of the things too, Gladys, that I noticed in your book is that you talk about, at 103 years old now, having a 10-year plan. And to some people, that seems audacious. But I just was riveted when I heard that. And then you talk about exactly what that is. But maybe you could briefly tell us why you even have a 10-year plan and what is it?
For me, it's something that to reach towards, and it's a village for living medicine. I don't know where it's, it can be any place. In fact, it is any place. There are blue zones around the world that are places where people have lived quite a long time, but they have lived in a way that is, well, it reaches for life and love. It doesn't reach for the conflict and stuff that comes along. It deals with, but that's not what it's reaching for. It's reaching for life and love, so it's constantly growing. So a village for living medicine is what I think would is a purpose that I can reach for. However that's happened, I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's happening. It's happening.
How does that vision that you have for this community, what is that? How does it impact your daily life? Having a vision, having goals, looking forward, having purpose. What is that? How does that impact your decisions that you make each day?
It lets me talk to you.
Okay.
It allows me. It gives me a voice, because there's certain things that I think human beings are reaching for. See, I have this idea. This isn't a theology. It isn't anything. It's just my idea.
Okay.
That when God created the universe, it was beautiful. It was exactly everything is in place. It was just right. It was so gorgeous and everything. And then he created the human being. And he said to us as human beings, now here's the universe that is just exactly perfect. And now I'm giving you humans dominion over this earth, because you are the only beings in this entire universe that have free will and choice. So I therefore give you dominion over this earth. And we, in our arrogance, decided, he said, dominance. So we said, oh boy, and we took it over. And now look what's happened. Dominion means taken care of. So
I love that.
if we are here to take care of Mother Earth, let's do it. What a privilege that is. But if we don't even understand that, then we misunderstood our mission on this earth. And that is to help each other, help every other being, every other living process on this earth. Let me tell you about a friend of mine, because this carries the message of the story. I tell stories because I think the message gets across better from me.
We love stories.
Do it this way. So this man was a family friend of ours. He used to eat dinner with us a lot of the times, and the kids loved him. And, he was just a family friend. And then he moved into dementia. And so we found a really nice place where he could, we knew he was being taken care of, and things were going along just fine. And so one week I took a little plant in a little pot, a little green plant, to him as a gift. So when I came into the room where he has this really nice room and all, I came into the room and I gave it to him and I said, James, here's a plant, and it's here for you to love. And I'm talking around that theme, and he's just looking around. He's not paying. It seemed to me he wasn't paying any attention to it. That's all right. I knew him and I loved him, and it didn't matter. He could take what he needed to take. And so when I was finished, I put it on the windowsill and I gave it some water, and I said, you just need to get, so on and so forth. And then I left. And I came back a week later, and he meets me at the door, and he says, magic, magic. And I said, what? And he said, look, box. And he takes me into the room over to the box, which was the air conditioner box. And, like right now it's 112 out here. Well, we need air conditioning, So he says, magic. He says, push this button, everything gets cool. Plant loves cool.
Oh.
And then he pokes over the other button over here. He says, push this button. Everything gets hot. Plant doesn't like hot. And I said, oh my, isn't that amazing? He, in his dementia, has connected with this plant who obviously has dementia too. What does the plant know? But it knows something enough that it connected with him and he connected with her. And they had a loving relationship going on that I never could have imagined.
Wow.
But it's so amazing when you begin to really see and feel what's happening with the world around us.
Do you think that this idea of having a future you're looking forward to is related to longevity? And if so, what have you seen in your practice with people? Because we meet people all the time that they're so stuck in the past, all they can reflect on is the past. And the people that don't look forward to something that's bigger and better, are people that are often struggle with mental issues like anxiety or depression or whatever. But how is this related to longevity?
Oh, it's critical. I like to think of it as like if we have a bag of stuff that we've been carrying, and we've been carrying it a long time, and it's not very nice, and it's actually kind of nasty, or maybe not nasty, but it's not something that we brag about. But we carry it on our shoulder, so it's on this bag that's on our shoulder, and if we keep looking at that bag, if we keep turning our head and looking at that bag of stuff that we've been carrying all this time, we're going to get a stiff neck. I mean, how are we ever going to pull our neck back again? That's what we're looking at. If we know we've got that back there and it's taken care of itself, but we're looking for the light, we're going to find the light. We don't need to be stuck in that bag over our shoulder. It's there if we choose. Actually, we can let it go. We may not need to let it go because there may be a lot of lessons that we still have to learn in there. And so we need to hang on to it for a while, but we don't need to be stuck with it.
Yeah, that's a good answer. We don't have to be stuck with it.
No.
And I think that progress really happens when we can learn from the past, but not be stuck in the past.
Yeah.
And we begin to look forward.
Yeah, it's part of our story.
Yeah.
It's part of the story we have to tell. And everything has lessons. So if we learn from that story and don't just try to get over it, like we say, oh, well, just get over that. Learn from it and grow from it and live from it. Everything that happens to you is there for a reason. And you can either learn from it or you don't.
One of the things you say in the book is spend your energy wildly. What do you mean by that?
Usually it's wisely, right? Spend wisely.
You can be wise about it if, and it probably should be, but don't hold back. There was a time when I had to punch that doctor. He really needed to be punched, So that you spend it. If the energy rises and you need to have your voice heard, use it. And don't be afraid that somebody will judge you, because of course they will.
Yeah, inevitably.
It's not if somebody is going to criticize you, of course somebody's going to criticize you. Because, we criticize ourselves all the time, but the whole fact that what we're doing is working with understanding things that we need to understand And if we need to understand something, we need to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And if we need to talk about it, sometimes we need to write about it. And it's a process. Life and love have to move. In order to stay alive, they have to move.
Hmm.
And I have
Dr.
guys starting to talk about the 5 L's.
Yeah.
The first 2 are together, and that's the pregnancy. But when the baby takes its first breath, it's on its own. It has its own space in the world. But then the third, those 2 are together. But the third one is laughter. Laughter without love is cruel. It's mean. It breaks up families. It causes wars. It's just not nice. But laughter with love is joy and happiness. And the fourth one is labor. Labor without love is drudgery. Oh man, I've got to go to work. Too many diapers. This is too hard, and we drag its heavy load along. But labor with love, you work twice or 15 times harder with labor with love. Think of what you're doing.
Right.
Think of what I'm doing, the time that we're spending doing the thing that we love because we love it. I mean, I love talking to you, and you love talking to me because that's where the energy is flowing. So, and the 5th L is listening. Listening without love is empty sound, but listening with love is understanding. So these 5 L's kind of form a foundation on which we can build a lot of really good stuff for ourselves and for the people that we work with.
Dr. Gladys, thank you so much for visiting with us here for a few minutes. We've really enjoyed this conversation. You're kind of a hero to us. And I want to encourage all of you listening to buy the book, The Well-Lived Life, a 102-year-old doctor's 6 secrets to heal with happiness at every age. And it's got a foreword by one of my medical heroes, Dr. Mark Hyman.
Yeah.
So that was really the first thing that got my attention.
I also want to say that the Audible version is fantastic. The person you got to read it was extremely talented in capturing your voice and your enthusiasm and everything. It was a very enjoyable book to listen to.
I hope our paths cross again, and you're just an inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about our takeaways. And I think the biggest one I have is that health and longevity have more to do with your psychological state and your connections with community than they have to do with all the things that we do to our bodies. And I'm not saying that's not important, but I think our psychological state and the connections we have with other people, love and life, trump everything else.
Yeah, exactly. And when you get to know Gladys more and her story, you also learn that she had cancer twice. And so it's just her journey of healing through that is very inspirational. I know that the mental, physical, the spiritual, and psychological aspects helped her healing so much in those days. For me, I think the takeaway was I have to just say I love her positive view of life, and I think when you see all of life as a teacher, regardless of what happens, there's the illusion that life will be hunky-dory and have no issues if you do everything right or whatever is just fantasy. It's just not reality. And so in this world, you will have tribulation. I mean, that's just a reality. And so what are you going to do about it? How are you going to respond to it? And I think when you do begin to see everything as a gift, everything as a teacher, which she talks so much about, she also talks about gratitude a lot. And the fact that gratitude is just knowing that you have enough. I forget the exact quote that she has, but it's just it's a whole huge way of looking at all of your life. And I think when you start living from that position of abundance and gratitude and love, as you heard her talk about with the 5 L's, love was in every single one of them. And it transforms an experience into something growth producing and valuable, and which leads to a longer, more satisfying life.
Well, the longer I live, the more I see love as the essential ingredient. And hatred and conflict and division is not healthy.
It's toxic.
It's toxic.
Physically toxic.
And I think that that's one of the things that if we're going to be ambassadors for the Double Win, which we are, and hopefully all of you listening are, then we've got to make love sort of the foundation of everything that we do. Well, guys, look, thanks for joining us for this episode, a very special episode with Dr. Gladys McGarey. And Gail, thank you for joining me. This is the first time we've done a podcast like this.
Thanks for letting me be a part of this today.
It was fun.
Just a blast. I loved every second.
Okay, guys, we look forward to the next episode with you. By the way, in the meantime, if you wouldn't mind, write a rating or give a rating for the podcast and write a review. That helps us tremendously in getting this message of the Double Win out to the masses. See you soon.